Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. This is Larry Janae, and we are at the South Florida Industrial Real Estate Podcast. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Mike Oretsky and Tom O'Loughlin. And today we have an incredible guest for you. A round of applause. Eric Wolf, president of Excel Construction, is going to school us on what's going on in the general contracting market and is going to hopefully drop some knowledge for all of us. So, Eric, why don't you take a minute and tell us a little bit about your company, what you do, and how long you've been around and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So thank you, guys. Eric Wolf, president of Excel Construction, general contractor in Florida. We focus in industrial, tilt-up, ground-up, and TIs. Family company, been around since 1999. Second generation. My father started the company.
Awesome.
And he retired about 12 years ago, growing and keep going.
So you're the big boss, yeah. And I know Eric does a lot of TI projects, ground up construction projects for, I would say, most of our industrial owners and a lot of our tenants also, a lot of TI projects. So Eric knows a lot about what's going on in the market, and we're excited to ask him some questions, and hopefully it's valuable for our audience out there. So Mike, why don't you kick it off with your first question?
Yeah, so Eric, obviously we're keeping you very busy pricing out a lot of different projects. And, you know, in a market right now, we're seeing a lot of TI requests from all these different prospects, you know, from a wider range, which we've obviously had you price out many times in the past couple months here. So just wanted to start the question about power upgrades. So we're getting a lot of heavier power requirements. You know, in the past, we've dealt with transformer delays and other issues with FPL, but all that aside, it seems like that's more on the sideline now. So what are you seeing, a cost for a simple power upgrade and timing? So that we can tell our customers.
So great question. I think power is actually the biggest problem solver that we have to find in these buildings. So right now, a lot of the older Class A or Class B product doesn't have the infrastructure to get the power in the building. A lot of your new users you're seeing these RFPs, these requests where they want 800 amps, 2500 amps. And first you need to understand, do they really need that much power? Because it's very expensive to bring the power in. Right. And then second, can we get the power from FP&O? So, you know, getting the power, you know, 600 amps, 800 amps, we used to see really long lead times in COVID, but now that's coming down. It's just dealing with FP&O and getting it in the building is the biggest challenge. So we're finding some of the older infrastructure can't get the 2500, 3000 amp power users. But the new Class A buildings, we can get it in. It's just, you know, what's the actual use? How much do you need? Because when you put 300,000 or 3,000 amps, most of the time you don't need 3,000 amps of power.
Right. So that has more to deal with not only can the building handle it, but actually getting the power to the individual unit.
Yeah, from FP&O. And FP&O is the curveball that we never know, right? It could be 10 weeks, it could be 6 months.
Yeah.
What about pricing? Have you priced out a power job recently that you can give us an example? What does the pricing look like?
Every day, we're pricing out power.
Pick one.
Pick one. I mean, so what we're seeing, so a lot of times we're putting in the spec offices, right? The developers say, we need a spec office so it's ready to go. And they typically put 200 amps, which is the lowest cost to get to the space. But 200 amps for most users is not accurate. So we're seeing that 6 to 800 is more standard. Yeah. And that can range anywhere to get 800 amps. You're probably anywhere in the $70,000 to $110,000 range. It obviously depends on the run, right? So if you start in the middle of the building and the suite's right in front of there, easy. If we're going 400, 600 feet to the corner, different game.
Yeah.
Right. And a quick disclaimer, we know you're giving us back the napkin numbers. Every unit's obviously different, but these are back the napkin numbers that we can use when having the high level discussions.
Yes.
Yeah. So Tom, what about you? You got any questions for Eric?
Of course. So one of the biggest things that our clients are constantly, you know, pricing out or asking you to price out is spec office or, you know, box and box, just run of the mill vanilla office space, which isn't that vanilla anymore because we're all going with LED lighting, higher ceilings, all that type of stuff. So as landlord brokers, mostly, we've been kind of using the rule of thumb 200 to 225 a foot. Are we in the ballpark? Are we lowballing that? You know, and we just know that now people want 4 individual restrooms, 2 in the warehouse, 2 in the back, and 2 in the office. Like there's a lot of unique features now because of code and other things like that.
So yes, you're in the ballpark. again, depending on where, what the design is. So number one, every developer does their economics differently. So does the office to warehouse wall go into the calculation? Does the power go into the calculation? Those will all skew your numbers. So 2 to 260 is in the ballpark, depending on how they do the economics.
And just because I'm asking, because I've seen it now done both ways, and I know it might be generically, different municipalities, but some people encapsulate the office firewall all the way to the ceiling, and some don't. Is there like a rule associated with that, or is that just like dealer's choice, like we want it to look good, or do the municipalities actually say it has to be done?
Yeah, so great question. So the rule for fire separation, so going to the ceiling, there's no rule, but you have to be fire rated separated. It's called the 10% rule. So we're running into some issues right now. It's all the spec offices, they might even run it to the deck on one side, but they're not going all the way to the deck on the other side, so it's not fire rated. Once you go over 10% office, you have to be fire separated. So what's happening is we're saving money on the forefront doing the spec office by not running it all the way to the deck, and then you get this user that needs to expand the office by 1,000 square foot, and you put 3,000, so now you have 4,000, but they're only taking 30,000 square feet. You're over 10%, you're now have to go fire rate everything, and it becomes a nightmare, and it's very costly.
And then one other question we get a lot, because the trend right now is, we all ran out and bought really, not bought, but built really big boxes, and now a lot of landlords are going through and cutting them, demising them down to 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. We're hearing demising walls 36 clear after they get fire wrapped and do all this stuff, and double sided, 1 hour, north of 400, 450 bucks a linear foot.
All day long.
All day long.
All day
and
long.
Growing. We've heard,
Yes.
like, it's just.
So our costs, right? So it's not with markups and everything. You're around $530 a foot. So you put the GCs, you put the markups. Then it depends if you're following on a girder line or not, because then you got to do fire sprinkler. Are you painting it? Are you putting base on it? All day long 400s, you're in the 5 to 6.
More realistic.
Yeah, and 36. So what's happening is you go to 36, the stud spacing is getting closer, your height's getting closer, and then we have to go down. So gauge thickness goes down. The more you go down, the thicker it is.
For the studs?
The studs, right? So the more so a 12 gauge is thicker than a 16 gauge. It's kind of opposite of how most people think. But what happens is it's not just the cost of the material, the labor significantly goes up, because in order to cut a 12 gauge stud, you're sitting there trying to cut the stud versus a 18 gauge, you just run it through a saw. So the labor significant, when you get to a 12 gauge stud, putting a screw in a 12 gauge stud is a completely different game than just a regular 18 gauge stud.
Yeah, and before we move on from that point, guys, just to put it all together, the cost of spec office and the cost of demising wall, that's why you don't see small bay being developed right now in South Florida. With the cost of land and the cost to develop, it's just, you can't make those numbers work.
Right.
Just probably why the prices keep going up and the rents keep going up. It's just you got diminishing supply, and it's impossible to build it. So.
Yep.
Really interesting. Well, my question for Eric is about lead times. COVID was crazy. There was lead times for everything that were extraordinary. That seems to have cooled off, but I'm really curious, like, what's the hardest thing you have to source right now, and where are lead times for things?
Yeah, great question. So COVID, lead times were crazy. We were seeing 52 weeks for gear, right? It was getting ridiculous out there. Now everything significantly came down. Most of our lead times are running into the 8 to 12 weeks. Now, if you get into some of the larger power, you could go into 18 weeks to 20 weeks. But your standard spec office, your standard 800 amp or 600 amp power, that's all within about that 8 to 12 week lead time. RTUs could be a little bit, they could be 9 to 12 weeks, so just depending on what you're looking at. We haven't had significant lead times. Now, what we are starting to see is a supply constraint on steel. So a lot of, I'm sure you guys see in the news, the data centers are getting popped up everywhere right this minute. Yeah. So steel, like if you were to place an order right now for steel for a building, you're probably going to be into the late summer, early fall. And pricing is starting to tick a little bit on steel. But obviously if you're planning ahead, that's not the end of the world for a ground up. But for the TIs, your lead times are really in that 8 to 12, unless we get into very specific lighting or something.
So would you say steel is the thing to watch for 26?
I think that steel, anything that is tariff driven or is, on the national front, steel at data centers, power will start probably being something we need to start watching because data centers are starting to grab a lot of it. But the supply chain is flowing right now. So, steel, there's only 4 main manufacturers. They're booking. All our gear and everything's coming from over, is out there. So, yes, I would definitely keep an eye on steel though for 26.
Got it. That's great. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, keeping with that, the timing, we always used to use historically for, TI jobs. We always used to historically use a timing perspective of we'll design it, bid it out, build it, permit it, 4 or 5 months. And then it went 5 to 6. And now it went 7 to 8. And it seems like it's hovering around by the time you figure out that the municipality doesn't work on Fridays and dog ate my homework and the review, the fire, no one can find the fire guy.
Right.
And he only makes comments on Tuesday and comes back to you. It seems like, to go build a spec office now, we should really be budgeting 7 or 8 months. Is that sound?
Absolutely. I mean,
the more sophisticated projects, you're probably 9 to 12, a year.
So a spec office is typically for us to build about 12 to 14 weeks, right?
Okay.
From when we get a permit in hand till we're done, 12 to 14 weeks. Design typically, I would say 3, right? And then, or 3 months, sorry. And then your permitting, it depends on where you're permitting, right? You could be 8 weeks, you could be 16 weeks, right? Just depending on the jurisdiction that you're in. But 8 months is from you say go, if you don't have plans, is probably pretty accurate. And then when you get into the larger, you might be 5 months on the construction. The design doesn't take that much longer on the forefront, and the permitting doesn't take. It's just the actual construction at that point.
Right.
Interesting.
I'm curious about what the biggest friction point is for you right now. Is it dealing with the cities and the pace in which they move, which is at a snail's pace, or is it client related drama where there's too many cooks in the kitchen, or what's the biggest friction point for GCs right now that if it was removed, efficiency would go up substantially?
So the cities and the amount of inspections that we have to do to complete a project. Let's just take the demising wall since that was a topic. There's a framing inspection, then there's an insulation inspection, then there's a screw inspection, all to build one wall. So if I was able to go build the wall and not have to do all these inspections, I could probably build it in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
But with the inspections and going through the process, you're pushing 5 weeks by the time you're done. And it's a big difference, right? And like Tom said, they don't work on Fridays. Oh, I only get 15 minutes to get an inspection. There's all these other little nuances that they put in there that it's a challenge.
And you multiply that by all the things that have to get inspected. It's a cascading effect. So building inspections is the biggest friction point for GCs right now.
Yeah.
I hope the cities...
And pricing. Well, I think that's on the developer side too, but yes, pricing is definitely a challenge.
Pricing, but I hope the cities are out there listening to this and they can find some way to become more efficient. Maybe
we should hide his logo. He has to go in there every day.
We love the cities, but it would be great if you went faster.
As I know you do a lot of shell construction, big developments for some of the largest, most sophisticated developers in the marketplace from an industrial standpoint. Is there any cool trends or emerging things that you've seen? I know people are all going 36 clear. People are starting to do clear story windows around all 4 sides. Is there any unique stuff or cutting edge things that you're starting to see? Maybe there's not, but is there anything cool that you're starting to see emerge?
I will say one of the new developments, they really put some money into the facades, right?
Yeah.
And I think just as a client walking into that building, it really stands out from the rest of the buildings, right? We're so used to tilt wall, a canopy, some glass, and you go, right? But there's a lot of money invested in that. So I can't tell you if the return's there, if the lease is quicker, but that was very cool and trending. A lot of times we see the EV planning. I haven't seen the EV take off.
Right.
You mean putting in the infrastructure?
You need chargers. You got to have some chargers in a new building. At least 1 out of 15 or 20 people are going to have an electric car.
Yeah, but what I would say is what we really need to start thinking about is to the power, is putting the infrastructure, planning these meter rooms a little bit bigger, making the future conduits in there in order for us to get power in quicker.
Right. So you bring a fleet in or something down the road.
You got to plan for it before. So we're winding down on this episode here, running out of time. Just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. This was really enlightening. I'm excited that you were our first guest. I've been a big fan of your company for a decade now, and I think you do incredible work, and I hope people people reach out to you. If you're interested in connecting with Eric, I'm going to tag him below, and you can also Google him, Eric Wolf Excel Construction, and all his contact info will come right up. So I hope some people see this and give you a call and give you a chance to price out some work, because we all vouch for your work and we all really enjoy working with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We
So
appreciate the
thanks for
free
joining
con.
us. You got it,
Thank you,
man.
guys.
Thanks for
for your
being
time.
here. Thank you.